Sneaky Joe DiBiase, it's Jeremy and Joe here on WGR. Carl Jones coming up at 8 o'clock. Plenty of time for phone calls. Let's kick off this hour with Harmon in Nashville. What's up, Harmon?
Hello, good morning. Just a little warning, stay away from A.J. Brown. I've lived here in Nashville for a long time and was here when A.J. Brown was here before he got traded. And one of the reasons that he got traded was because John Robinson, the GM at the time, really wasn't willing to put up with what it took to keep A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown, if you get him, all you're going to get is what happened with Stephon Diggs before he wound up being gone. And I don't think that that's what you need with a new coach. That's why he's having trouble in Philadelphia, because Mike Vrabel babysat A.J. Brown, and the Philadelphia coach Sirianni probably was not doing that, and that's why you had all that drama. And you don't want that with a new coach.
Yeah, I guess that would be the number one thing that is mentioned about him and why you wouldn't do it, why they wouldn't do it. That's more of it for me. Like, because for me, I don't care about any of it. Any of it. To me, the Eagles have proven that, okay, sure, he reads books on the sidelines, and sometimes he is doing things on social media, and he'll say things in press conferences, and getting into it with the coach, and getting into it with the quarterback, all of it. All the stuff, all the prima donna narrative, sometimes it's nonsense, sometimes it's real, stuff that you hear about wide receivers. All of that's there with A.J. Brown. What's happened the last few years? Whenever they've had a play caller that's any good at all, they're in the Super Bowl. And with all of that happening with A.J. Brown, what'd they do 2 years ago? They won the Super Bowl. Why? Because it matters more if you're great. That comes first. And I think the Bills have ran from that a little bit since Diggs. That intensity. I think Brown might be a little different than what Diggs was for this. Like, to me, the reputation of Diggs was he was so competitive that he would go over the top, and sometimes it was hard to deal with, and the Bills decided, rather than trying to deal with it because he's so good, they decided, no, we just don't want to do it anymore. And we'd rather be relaxed as an organization and a franchise. So that's what they've done. Brown, I don't think that's the problem with Brown. Brown is the guy that's tweeting after the Super Bowl that he cares more about his own craft than winning. And that was 2 days after he hoisted the Lombardi Trophy. But, again, my attitude on that is always, well, what do I care what his motivation is? If his motivation is to win and he's great because of it, great. If his motivation is to be the best player he could possibly be, and then he's great. But I know a lot of people are not going to be on board with him because of all of that. And I don't think the Bills, because of how they have kind of acted in the post-Diggs life cycle here, are going to sign up for him and trade all the assets that it would take to get him. But I wish they would. I like him as a player. I think he is the perfect type of receiver for what they need. They need that X-receiver that can beat press coverage, win down the field, win contested balls when you absolutely need to, but that should come like fifth on the list. And Brown does all of those things.
Would it not be the best possible thing for Joe Brady, though? Like, oh, I was able to maintain and handle A.J. Brown on my team, and they end up winning, right? Like, imagine that. Like, that's a big stamp, I would say, for him.
I would agree with that. I also think it is funny that, you know, like, if he did handle Brown and, you know, being able to take all of that and direct it in the way you want it, you might not even need to. Because I don't really think Nick Sirianni has done that, right? Like, there's always something going on. Sirianni's getting into it with him. And remember, it's not always Brown. Brown was the one that was looking weirdly at Sirianni when he was
in the tunnel here,
mean-mugging people on his way out of the tunnel in Buffalo. And Brown's looking at him like, what is this guy doing? who is this? This is our head coach? Like, that's the look he was giving him. So, I mean, that relationship went a little bit both ways. I wouldn't say Sirianni did anything to, like, you know, if you want to say handle A.J. Brown. And, again, they won. They won anyway because the roster was so good, which is not the case here, obviously. So, I don't know. Like, I think he is a very interesting idea. I think another layer of it is the New England piece of it. And, all right, you don't want to pay the price it's going to take to trade for A.J. Brown. That's fine, but get ready if New England is. And he's perfect for what New England needs too. And you're trying to beat them in the division. You're trying to wrestle it back from them. And this is the same way I thought about Kansas City when they made the Worthy trade. I think you need to be thinking about the other team that is in most direct competition to you, and that has always been the Chiefs. I am less certain that's the Chiefs this year because of the Mahomes injury, and it's very clear now that New England is that team because they are in your division. They made the Super Bowl. The quarterback is great. The quarterback is young. The coach is great. They have cap space. They have an ability here to improve the roster if they want to, and the Bills don't have that ability. They have much less in terms of resources. So, you know, they would pivot, right? Like if they didn't get A.J. Brown, they would just pivot to somebody anyway, and that's probably why you shouldn't make that your sole decision maker. But if he's good enough for New England, he should be good enough for the Bills. That's how I would look at it. That being said, he's not my favorite idea. And for me, it's more about the age. It's more about how close is he to the cliff. Because I don't know what A.J. Brown looks like when he's 32 years old. And that's 3 years down the road, right? Like, he'll be 29 this season. He's big and he's physical. And, you know, he's dealt with a couple of injuries. Nothing ever really major. It's always been little stuff. But how does that player age? And if I'm going to invest all that it takes to invest in him, I don't know what it looks like past this year. And that is my concern. The reason I like Thomas as an idea more is he's 23. If that works, and the if that works is probably a lot greater than it is for Brown. But I would trade that risk for the upside of, if it does work, I'm hopefully talking about a 7 to 8 year relationship. Maybe longer with this player because of his age. And if he can be a guy that is really good for you through to when he turns 30 years old someday, then I've landed the guy that's going to take Josh Allen through the rest of his prime, at receiver specifically. And that won't be Brown. I trade for A.J. Brown, and I'm not going to not be excited. He's great. He'll come right in, be your best weapon, and I'll like their chances to win the Super Bowl a lot better if they had A.J. Brown on their roster tomorrow. But I'm going to have to do this again at some point soon. Maybe it's next year. Maybe it's 2 years from now. Maybe it's 3. But it's probably one of those. I'm going to have to do this again. And that's where I like the Thomas idea. It's I do this now, and there's a good chance I never have to revisit it. Although that's not the greatest way to approach receiver, isn't it? You don't just trade for one guy and then I'm set for life. You want to keep taking swings. You want more than just one guy. It's pretty good. But Thomas, Shakir, and I mean Palmer would probably be your guy. I mean a rookie ideally at some point. Like that's how you get there. But you know, like the other reason I like the Hendrickson idea, which I said last segment, like my two favorite ideas are Thomas and it's Hendrickson. Hendrickson, who is, you know, I'd say all that about receiver, and I do understand that I'm choosing the old guy on defense. Hendrickson is 31. I don't know how long you want to sign him for. 3-year deal. Crosby's 2 years younger. But by signing Hendrickson, it makes it so that it doesn't feel like they have to draft a pass rusher in the first round. And if they didn't land anybody, you might feel like they need to do that. They just have so many bodies to fill at that position that it feels like it would be top of the list. You sign Hendrickson, and it would still be in the running, but it wouldn't be like runaway favorite with the first round pick. So I'm hoping they do that. I'm hoping they do both, honestly. By the way, some other ideas that have been tweeted in that I have not mentioned yet, but we have talked about throughout the weeks. What's the big splash move the Bills could make for a veteran player this offseason? We talked about Crosby. We talked about Hendrickson. We've talked about Brown and Thomas. But some of the other guys, Mike Evans in free agency, Alec Pierce in free agency. Probably the top two receivers if they both make it to the market. Pickens shouldn't make it. And same thing there. You kind of got an age versus money versus how much is this guy left in the tank conversation. Pierce is 25 years old. Similar to Thomas. You sign him and it works, then hopefully it's a 5 to 6 to 7 year relationship. You sign Mike Evans, and I'm probably having to replace him in a year or two. Right? And on those two, I just don't think the Bills are dipping their toes back into free agency at wide receiver. Other than, they've already done it 2 years in a row, and it hasn't gone well. They've spent the money. They've spent middle-of-the-road receiver contracts on Josh Palmer and Curtis Samuel, and it's kind of blown up in their face. And are they going to do that again? But even higher, because Pierce is going to get a bigger contract relative to his peers than what Palmer did, than what Samuel did. I mean, really, I'm not putting this guy on my list for splash move because I don't think this guy qualifies as a splash move. I think Pierce does, I think Evans does. But it is funny. The guy that I really do think of all of these names is the most likely to sign with the Bills is the guy that Larry in South Florida, who called in at the end of the 6 o'clock hour, mentioned for them, and we haven't had a chance to talk about it yet, and that's Romeo Doubs. 25 years old. He blocks. He plays outside, on the line, all the dirty work. Just exactly what I can imagine Joe Brady wanting to replace Tyrell Shavers, to replace Gabe Davis, to replace what they were hoping Keon Coleman was going to be, playing that role, but being a better player for it. I mean, it'll be hilarious if they sign another receiver for $11 million, which is probably around what he gets. Maybe he gets a little bit more than that. But that, to me, is the most likely outcome.